Oh boy. I really hope this is the last time I have to talk about Redfall. Look, we all know the game severely disappointed a vast majority of people. We all know that. But Jason Schreier, shout out to him. Between him, Jez, Jeff Grubb, Tom Henderson, your boy always got content to talk about. I'm going to be real with you guys. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about this. Not necessarily because it's like, putting a spotlight on negative stuff on Xbox, but it's just like, I'm tired of talking about Redfall. We talked about Redfall for like a week straight. But I'm hoping, with any luck, this is the last time I'll have to talk about this game. So for those of you who know, Redfall came out, and not only it reviewed horribly, it was, for the most part, looked like a commercial failure as well. Now, let's give some context. I did get a review code for Redfall, but it was giving me nauseous. I didn't want to play it anymore. So that's my review pretty much. But when we're going into Redfall, the biggest question is, how did it get there? How did it get that bad? Why did it come out in the state it did? Looks like there's a couple scenarios and there's a couple of different parties we can blame. First person we blame is ZeniMax, the people that Microsoft bought Bethesda from. Now, obviously, they bought ZeniMax too, but they actually bought ZeniMax, which bought Bethesda. And they still kept them as one entity, and I think that was the biggest issue. Then we can blame Xbox, because Microsoft came in there after they bought the acquisition. It doesn't look like they put a lot of thought process or really had too much checks and balances when it come to the games they were currently working on, which is Redfall. And keep in mind, this is not an excuse, but at the time, the pandemic was going on. So I'm assuming, that prevented them from really traveling as much as they usually do. But that's not an excuse. So let's go over what Jason Schreier said. I will put his description, his link in the description, so you guys can go read it yourself. Pretty much what he said is, look, when they first started development of Redfall, they wanted an Arkane multiplayer game. And the problem with that is a lot of the immersive stuff that Arkane does well, the actual developers didn't think it would actually work in a Arkane game multiplayer centric. So, ZeniMax they were chasing that Fortnite bag. They were chasing that Overwatch bag. They wanted those microtransactions because that seems like the whole industry wants it. Look, I get it. If you're a multi-million dollar company, even trillion, such as Microsoft, you're going to want that quick revenue that you get every month. It's more beneficial for you to work on something like that than it is for you to work on like single player IPs, even just standard multiplayer, because you're not getting that games as a service in it, and you're not getting money quarterly instead of just one time and you have to move on to another project. I think there's enough room for both, but that's my point. So they went to Arkane pretty much, and they were like, yo, we want you to make our version of Fortnite, but make it feel Arkane-like. And it does look like the developers push back hardcore. It just seems like the management at Arkane was just drinking the juice, man. And I don't know if they get like share cuts or anything like that. It's apparently there used to be microtransactions in Redfall, and they cut them in 2020, 2021, if I remember correctly. I don't know if that's the date, but it seemed like around the time that Microsoft bought them. So, kudos to Microsoft. Maybe they gave them a little bit more leeway in terms of, look, we think this game's going to come out hot as it is. Maybe you should just drop the microtransactions. Or maybe the Arkane Austin developers, maybe they came to them and said, we don't think this game needs microtransactions. And it worked out very well, because if this game had microtransactions on top of all the issues it had, it would have been like 10 times worse. So it went through there, and then Microsoft bought them. Now, here's where I agree with the overwhelming news on Twitter, the overwhelming, thought process on Twitter. I've seen like Dreamcast guy made a video. This is where Microsoft should have taken an assessment, a more in detailed assessment, it looks like, because even Phil Spencer said in the Kind of Funny interview, he said, we should have been more hands-on when it come to them early on. It does look like they have that approach when it comes to Starfield, but when it comes to Redfall, it seemed like it was like a sink or swim kind of thing, and it looked like they sunk. So that's the thing. It's like Microsoft needs to do better management. They need better quality control. You know, I get it that sometimes they're going to make a 70, sometimes they're going to make a 90s. I don't agree with that because they're even in every genre in gaming. There's the higher tier of games in that genre and there's the lower tier of games. You know, you got some indies that are scoring higher in the same genre of a AAA team. And I think you can't have that. You know, Microsoft needs to aim for the 80s and 90s. Obviously, some games ain't going to take an effect. And at that point, if you feel like a game's going to get in the 50s or 60s, just cancel it. Cancel it or revamp it. And it does look like when Microsoft bought Bethesda and, you know, Bethesda and ZeniMax, there was a lot of hope at Arkane Austin that they would let them scale it back from a multiplayer aspect to a single player aspect and let them reboot it. And, you know, looking at just the ideal of Redfall, it's a fantastic ideal. I think it would have done very well. But I do see where all that development, you would probably had to reboot the game. Maybe not entirely reboot the game because I'm sure they had a lot of aspects. If this was just a single player game, they could have done a lot differently, but it would have cost a lot of money and probably delayed it at least a year and a half to two, at least. And I think Microsoft wasn't willing to take that kind of hit financially because they just bought the company. And does that make it right? No. Microsoft should have either canceled that game or they should have went ahead and let them reboot it as a single player game and save the name of Arkane. Now look, obviously, there's two Arkane studios. And not the one that makes the games that we all love made Redfall. It looked like Roadhouse helped them a little bit. And that's another thing. There's a lot of people leaving Arkane. Like, if you're seeing this amount of people leaving, this amount of stress at the studio, something is wrong. And Microsoft failed them on that. You know, they should have been more hands-on for something like that. They could have caught stuff like this. You know, to me, even though you have something like Game Pass, which makes it even look worse, that you're willing to release a game such as Redfall, even though that you don't think the quality is where it should be, just so you can go ahead and get a game in that service to print value on it. And I don't think that's the way you should go. You should want to make enticing games to keep people in the service, and you shouldn't just throw games in Game Pass that you feel is just going to give them a couple weeks of playing a game. And I get it. There's a lot of red tape to this, guys. It's not just as simple as, you know, they should have canceled. They should not have canceled it. There's a lot of money that went into this. I'm assuming they were looking at that amount of money and they're like, we can get some of that money back if we release it. I don't know what happened. And Jason Schreier really didn't go into too much detail. He just said a little bit of the logistics that was going on with Redfall. But it's something that Microsoft and Xbox, they can't have that again. You know, if you're going to go out here and you're going to buy Activision next, let's say that goes through, that's another entire arm that they got to maintain and watch over. Got to have better checks and balances, Xbox. You got to. You cannot have games like Redfall come out ever again. You know, there's a difference between a game coming out a little buggy, which it shouldn't happen, but it's still good once they fix it. And a game that comes out doesn't seem like the game knew what it wanted to do. It seemed like the game was unfinished in a lot of different ways, and it was buggy. And I think that all of those elements together is what turned Redfall the direction that Redfall went. But anyway, put in the comment section below what you guys think. I'm kind of curious to hear your guys' opinion on this. You know, like I said, I don't want to talk about Redfall ever again, so hopefully this is the last time I'll have to talk about it. I talk about what's in the news. And today, Jason Schreier threw out that news, and I feel like it was worthy enough to make a video. But put in the comment section below, do you guys think that this was relevant enough? And, you know, until next time, this is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.